ॐ अज्ञानातिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं त्वं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च श्रीकृष्णकरुणासिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्तकाञ्चन गौरङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरोऽन्दिनतारणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna. So we'll start with our Bhagavatam study. So in this today we'll be discussing fifth chapter. So until the previous chapter, the conversation between Sutta Goswami and Naimisharanya sages were going on, and Naimisharanya sages headed by Shaunaka Rishi, and they asked few of the questions, and then in the process of answering their questions, Sutta Goswami was describing about different uh, no pastimes. No, he describes about Sukadeva Goswami's appearance and how he renounced and went to the forest, and he also is now describing the Vyasdev, like what are the circumstances, what are the uh, circumstances which led him to write this great script, great literature called Srimad Bhagavatam. So, so here now, Vyasdeva actually he is the author of entire Vedanta Sutra. Vyasdeva is the one who actually scripted the Vedas, Puranas, Itihasas, and he also wrote Vedanta Sutra. So so basically he is the like unless somebody so has very good command on the Vedas, they will not be able to write Vedanta Sutra. Like Vedanta Sutra is like no is like taking the essence of all the Vedas and putting it together at one place, in the precise manner. So that is Vedanta Sutra. Unless you know about the Vedas and Vedangas and Upanishad in detail, it is not possible for a common man to write Vedanta Sutra. So if you see like our Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we actually consider Srimad Bhagavatam as natural commentary of Vedas. So we don't look for any other or Vedanta Sutra. So our commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So, but like once when the initial days of establishment of actually this Guru Parampara has been coming from the lineage of it is eternally in four paramparas. We as we all know we have four paramparas, four Vaishnava paramparas, right? Like Brahma Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, Kumara Sampradaya, and Sri Sampradaya. So once what happened in Jaipur, all the Sri Sampradaya in Jaipur when Sri Sampradaya was predominantly accepted there because it was accepted by the kings of Jaipur. So at that point of time, they invited all the Vaishnava societies, and for that, Vishwanath at that point of time, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was the head of the uh, Gaudiya Vaishnava. Means Gaudiya Vaishnavas is nothing but who worships Radha and Krishna. If you see the Sri Sampradaya, they only worship Krishna, but Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they worship Radha and Krishna. So at that point of time, when these meetings were happening in Jaipur, so Vishwanath Chakravarti was Thakur was there, and the invitation came to him, and he was little bit, due to old age, he said, I may not be able to make it to the festival, because in those days they have to travel by road and they have to walk also. So he sent his disciple Baldev Vidyabhushan. So at that point of time, we doesn't have any commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So Baldev Vidyabhushan went to that like a meeting or conference, and then everybody is presenting uh, their parampara, and they're describing about everything. And then when it comes to Baldev Vidyabhushan said, like, we are Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we are coming from this parampara and so and so. And when it comes to the like, every sampradaya should have the comment, their own commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So when that point came, Baldev Vidyabhushan said, okay, we don't have any separate commentary on Vedanta Sutra, but we actually we have Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Means the purpose of Vedanta Sutra is to to give in essence what is the purpose of Vedas, and what are Vedas trying to teach us. So that thing you have to give as in precise manner. But when Baldev Vidyabhushan said Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary, and we accept Srimad Bhagavatam as our Guru Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we accept Srimad Bhagavatam as a natural commentary, and we go with it. When he said that, all the assembled these Vaishnavas who are like very representing their own parampara, or very elderly or very authoritative, they said, no, it cannot be done like that. You have to have your own Vedanta commentary. You are otherwise we will not recognize your this Vaishnava lineage, or Guru Parampara, or this Sampradaya, Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. Then he said, okay, give me some time, I'll do something about it, he said like that. And then he went, and they said, okay, we'll give like 10-15 days time, we'll meet again on 10-15 days, we'll be here in Jaipur only in 10-15 days, until by this end, means our conferences will go on. And by that time, if you can get a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, then we will accept your what do you call, parampara, or sampradaya. So then Baldev Vidyabhushan, he actually he prayed to his guru, and he prayed to Krishna, and then he went to Govindadev temple, and then sat there, and then he started writing commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And writing a commentary on Vedanta Sutra means it has to contain all the essence of all the Vedas and all the Upanishads. No, like that means it has to give the precise manner. It has to correlate everything. It has to contain the message of all of them. That should be kept in a precise manner. So he actually spent 10 days. In 10 days, he in the Govindadevji temple, and in 10 days he wrote the entire Vedanta Sutra commentary. And then after 10 days, he came back to that meeting, or no, and then he presented this Govinda Bhasha, and everybody hearing that, like, they were spellbound, they were astonished to see that commentary of Vedanta Sutra commentary given by Baldev Vidyabhushan. So, and they said, how can you achieve this? No, it will take some years. It should, at least it will take some 10-15 years to write that such commentary, including all the philosophies, and then should have such a good command on the Vedas and Puranas. How can you accomplish this? Then when they asked that Baldev Vidyabhushan this question, Baldev Vidyabhushan said, it is not me who wrote this, it is Govinda Devji. That's why I call it as Govinda Bhasha. So Govinda Bhasha is considered as the commentary of Vedanta Sutra, which is written by Baldev Vidyabhushan. By the means Govinda Bhasha means whatever Govinda Devji said, I wrote it. So that's why we have that commentary as our Sampradaya Vedanta commentary. So why we are discussing all these things means Vyasdeva himself wrote the Vedanta commentary. He is the first person to script all the Vedas and to script all the Puranas, to script all the Upanishads. And he wrote Mahabharata. In Mahabharata comes Bhagavad Gita, and like that. And he actually, his authority for entire thing means if you see any guru or he's considered as representative of Vasudev. That's what we call it, no, Vyasasan, like that. Because when Vyasadeva is the is like the ultimate authority for the Vedas. So such a person who like who is like there is no knowledge that is not known to the Vyasadeva means he is full of all knowledge means he is very well connected. No, like if you see the different types of opulences, right? Knowledge is also one type of opulence. Okay. So knowledge is power actually. Even the great kings, they actually bow down to the pandits or no or that sages because they are internally they are very powerful. Externally the kings may be powerful, but internally with their knowledge and with their self sense control, they are very powerful. So despite of having all these qualifications, Vyasdev, who is the ultimate authority for the Vedas and Vedantas, he actually was not satisfied and he was thinking about it. What is lacking in my work? Why am I miserable? Why am I not satisfied at heart? So he was thinking about it. He was contemplating what would be the reason, and he finally reaches that I might have not glorified Krishna in my literary work because it is only his no his expectation. Because sometimes like we feel sickness or illness, right? And we think okay, maybe due to this thing or due to eating this thing last night, I got this sickness or something like that. But in order to confirm that, we have to go to authority, we go to doctor and check it, no? We present our problem in front of doctor and doctor will check it and says, okay, your problem is not actually that, your problem is because of this other disease. Means the doctor will actually precisely know what is going wrong with our body. In the same way, when Vyasdeva was having this problem of dissatisfaction, despite of doing such a great literary work, it is the greatest charity work that anybody in the history of human race can do, to give Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, Mahabharata. Mahabharata is considered as Panchama Veda. It's a fifth Veda. So such a charity nobody has ever done it. Means he scripted it and he actually established one representative for each of the section. For Vedas one sage, for Puranas one stage, for Upanishads one stage, like that. And he asked all of them to preach this message uh, uh, throughout the uh, throughout the no to everybody, so that everybody will get benefited. So such a great benediction that he has given to humankind, but still that person is dissatisfied. So and and he is thinking, when he was contemplating on why he is not satisfied, then at that point of time Narada Muni arrives. When Narada Muni arrives, mm, Vyasdeva gets up from his seat and then welcomes him nicely. And it is said that Vyasdeva welcomed as if he has like Lord Brahma himself, because uh, like it is said that Guru should be respected as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Guru is the representative of Krishna himself. So we have to respect him with great respect. And then Narada Muni is all knowing because he is connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is connected to Krishna. He is always devoted to Krishna. He is all knowledgeable. He is knowing. He knows everything, and he knows what's going on in the heart of Vyasdev. And he actually, upon warm welcome by Vyasdev, when he is properly seated, and Vyasdev gave him all the Maria means whatever offerings that has to be done, Vyasdev did, and then Narada Muni started talking to Vyasdev, and Vyasdev was about to Narada Muni, when Narada Muni was talking, Vyasdev started listening, and Narada Muni said directly. Narada Muni came to the point and he said, okay, uh, he says, Narada Muni says, are you satisfied by identifying the body and the mind to be the self? Mm. And your inquiries and studies were complete. You wrote the most wonderful Mahabharata and elaborately explained all the Vedic instructions. And you have fully deliberated and realized the subjects of impersonal Brahman. Mm. Why should be despondent? Because Narada Muni saw that Vyasdeva was not satisfied within, and he knows everything, like what is going on in the heart of Vyasdeva also. So, just like when in the case of Krishna and Arjuna also, Arjuna was very much depressed, and he saw his different relatives, and he was thinking fighting this war, like fighting the war of Kurukshetra, will bring only misery to him. That such a kind of despondency Arjuna gets, and he was also kind of depressed. Mm. And in the same way, Vyasdeva was also not satisfied in the heart, and Narada Muni realizing that, Narada Muni addressed the root of why Vyasdeva is not satisfied. Mm. Now, Vyasdeva wrote all the Vedas, and the Vedas, if you see the Vedas deal with three modes. Mm. Three modes means how you want to enjoy, like there are different kinds of enjoyment is there. The enjoyment in mode of goodness, enjoyment in mode of passion, and enjoyment in mode of ignorance. And what type of enjoyment you want, what you want. You want to achieve something, do this yagya. You want kingdom, you want to get promoted to the heavenly planets, do this sacrifice or do this charity. So that kind of sense enjoyment is stressed in the Vedas. So the purpose of the Vedas is to gradually, if a person gets the object of sense enjoyment by performing some kind of yajna or yaga, then he will actually enjoy it and then experience it and realize that there is no pleasure in that. For example, like if you see any child, when he was 5 or 6 years of age, what he will ask maybe, I want a bicycle, or I want some video game, something like that. Until he gets that bicycle or video game, something like that, he will be fully hankering for that. He is thinking that if only I have that object, may it be like this video game or something like that, or or any bicycle or bike or something, then he will be thinking that only because of that, if I have that, I will be most happiest person. So he gets that object, and he enjoys it for a few months maybe, and then he loses interest in it. Then he'll next what he will do, he'll aim higher. His next target will be, okay, now I want, after age progresses, then I want a bike, or some, or like maybe car or something like that. Uh, Means, as the maturity increases, the our ambitions or our desires also change. So, but until we get that object of sense enjoyment, until that the I'm not talking about us, until that person get the object of enjoyment, sense enjoyment, he will be thinking, oh, I have to achieve this, and he will be striving for that. So, but Vedas will actually facilitate to get that objects of sense enjoyment, by by performing sacrifices, by performing or vratas, or performing some charities, something like that. And then after getting the object of sense enjoyment, he will enjoy that, and he will only realize that there is no ultimate enjoyment in this object. So he will then again aim for higher and higher, like that. He goes higher, and finally he reaches a stage that he realizes that there is no enjoyment in this material world. And like the words Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravritanarjuna, means right from Brahma loka until Patal loka, all the places there is only misery in this material world. Mm. So for a jiva, for a person to realize that in his lifespan, he has to, you no, he will be searching for happiness right from the beginning, right from his childhood. No, yeah, when he is childhood, he searches happiness in the when he is a baby, he searches happiness in the food. When he grown up, when he grows up little bit, he searches happiness in his krida, means play. When he grows little bit, he finds happiness in associating with opposite sex. And when he still grows further, then he sees happiness in family, fame, name, etc. And finally, at the old age, he actually finds happiness in his extended sense gratification, means he identifies himself with his sons, grandsons, and then thinks and then sees their achievement as his achievements, and he still finds try to get some happiness through that. Mm. So in this way, the entire human form of life he will waste in the pursuit of happiness in the material objects. So, but unless one is fortunate enough to have a bona fide guru, one cannot come to a stage where he will be able he will not until he has a bona fide guru, and he has he abides by the instructions of a bona fide guru. He will not be able to realize that there is no happiness in this material world. The happiness in this material world is only due to sense perception, because only senses and sense objects are coming together. Our tongue and gulab jamun is coming together, that gives happiness to us. As soon as that gulab jamun goes past the tongue, everything is same. Gulab jamun and karela, everything is same as soon as it passes the tongue. So it is clear that the happiness in this material world is only due to the combination of senses and sense object. So that's why Krishna says it is due to sense perception only. There is no happiness in this material world. The happiness in this material world is only due to the sense perception. So for the jivas, for the humans to come out of that sense perception, they should have a special mercy of a guru or a devotee of Krishna. So until that point of time, he will be hankering, he will be tasting different sense objects. Like it is also said right uh, in our Upanishad, they say right now there are two birds on the tree of material existence, and one bird is Paramatma and other bird is the living entity. And as Paramatma, Paramatma who is will be simply Sakshi, means he will just he doesn't taste for any he doesn't hanker for anything, but he will just witness the other word. Other word is jiva. Jiva is always tasting different types of fruits on the tree. And sometimes it gets a bitter fruit, and sometimes it gets a sweet fruit. And it's when it gets bitter fruit, that bird suffers. When it gets a sweeter fruit, that bird enjoys. So in this way, the 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 jiva bird is trying to enjoy or suffer in this material world by its hankering to with or associating with the matter. So and this the jivas have this natural tendency for looking for happiness in the matter, and Vyasadeva actually what do you call authorized that enjoyment by saying that how they can get better enjoyment in the Vedas. So for sure that's true. Actually, rather than looking for enjoyment outside the Vedic scriptures, it is better to look enjoyment according to the scriptures. That way they will gradually progress. But it is a very lengthy process, and it is a very time taking also. So when Narada Muni questions to Vyasdev, no, are you satisfied identifying self with the body? Because your Vedic injunctions that you are giving to this common man, they are only uh, facilitating the jivas how to enjoy in a different ways, how to get more and more sense pleasure through the Vedas. And you wrote the Mahabharata, you wrote Puranas, but yeah, all those things are not directly glorification of Krishna. Mm. He says that, no. So when Narada Muni was saying this, Vyasdeva actually agrees to it, and he says, yes, whatever you are saying is right, no. And I, you know, you are, he says you are correct and you know everything. Yeah, he glorifies Narada Muni. He glorifies Narada Muni that you are like a son, you know, who travels and who knows everything, who is all pervading like that. And then he Vyasdeva again requests him, can you actually tell me the actual, tell me proper reason, how can I get out of this? Then Narada Muni started elaborating on the subject matter, and he says, Narada Muni instructs, Narada Muni says, you have overemphasized the Purusharthas. What are Purusharthas? Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So even though among the four Purusharthas, Dharma is the beginning, and then Artha, Kama, and Moksha. All these three are only for sense enjoyment. Artha is when it is said that as per the Vedic injunctions, we have to be first dharmic first, and then in a dharmic way you have to earn artha, means you have to earn money, and then you have to use that money for your sense gratification, that is called kama, and then after doing all these things you have to go for moksha. So this is the these are the purusharthas that are prescribed in the Vedas, but this all this entire purusharthas is considered to be only sense enjoyment, because just because you want to enjoy more and more, like you, why you want to, why you are following dharma only because you don't want to suffer in the hell, means indirectly that is for your enjoyment only, and artha you are using for your enjoyment, and kama is directly sense enjoyment, and moksha is also because you got bored with all these dharma, artha, kama, then you are aiming for moksha, means this entire set of purusharthas is only for the enjoyment of the living entity. But unless that living entity realizes that I am should not be the enjoyer, all my activities uh, should give pleasure to Krishna, should give pleasure to Vishnu, then only he will attain the ultimate perfection of his life. So here Narada Muni says to Vyasdev, you have overemphasized, because this no, this material world is created for the living entities to enjoy independent of Krishna, but you have overemphasized this four Purusharthas, and then but you fail to glorify the Lord enough. And then when Narada Muni says that, Vyasdev gets a doubt. No, how why would you say? Because if you see all the Vedas, all the Puranas, if you see Mahabharata also, the ultimate conclusion is that we have to take the shelter of Krishna. We have to uh, uh, performing bhakti is the ultimate message. That's where I glorified. Vyasdeva could say that. When Vyasdeva was saying when Vyasdeva was saying this, then Narada Muni says, Narada Muni says, uh, like you have glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but still that is not enough glorification. Because when you serve a meal, you actually put main course. Main course is rice, dal, sabji, and chapati. That is the main course. And you give some additional dishes also, like chutney and like some dessert like that. But what Vyasdeva did, he actually gave chutney like a meal, and the bhakti, what is the essence of everything, he gave like a chutney. Means he is like he actually gave the essence of everything is bhakti, but in a very comparatively negligible way. Means if you see Mahabharata has some I think 18,000 slokas, or I don't know how many thousands of slokas are there, but among them only 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the bhakti, which even in the 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita also, there are only few chapters where the direct bhakti is glorified, or the glories of Krishna are directly mentioned. So if you see other Puranas, Vedas, Upanishads, the glorification of Krishna is done, but not in a very indirect way and very comparatively negligible way. Means there is no direct glorification of Krishna or his devotees. So and Narada Muni says you did not repeatedly glorify Krishna. Means glorifying Krishna means glorifying Krishna bhakti. Repeated the glories of pastimes of Krishna. Repeat or glories of the devotees of Krishna. You didn't do that repeatedly because like the people in general, they don't retain much of the subject in their hearts or in their mind, because they are by nature they are in ignorance. Unless something is said very repeatedly, the message won't reach their hearts. So like you didn't write not even a script, one scripture which repeatedly glorifies the pastimes of Krishna, or which repeatedly glorifies Krishna himself or his devotees. So the that is the cause for your despondency. When Narada Muni was saying this, Vyasdeva was agreeing, okay, yes, that might be a reason. That is true that I made a mistake. So then Vyasdeva, Narada Muni goes ahead and says, describes about how there are two kinds of, two categories of literature. So the materialistic literature, he says, that verse says, verse number 10, he says, Nayadvachaschitra harer yasho jagat pavitram pragniti karhichit tadvayasam tirtamushanti manasa nayatra hamsa niramatya usikshaya. He says, the materialistic literature devoid of Lord's glories that alone can satisfy the whole universe are considered to be the pilgrimage place of crows. The saintly persons do not derive no pleasure for them. So this whatever Vyasa wrote till now, it is like a materialistic literature, like only the sense gratification, or going into the heavenly planets, or getting mental benefits like earthly kingdom, uh, or nice family, or nice wife, nice husband, like that kind of things. All these materialistic things, the saintly person does not find any taste in them. He says that it is a pilgrimage for crows, because crows feed on only garbage. They don't take enjoyment in nice pristine lakes. The crows will be always at the place where there is filth. Okay, so whatever you have provided all through in your literature is like a filth for the saintly persons. So on the other hand, the transcendental literatures, he says, Tadvak visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokamabhadyamatyavi namanyanantasya yashonkitani yat srinvanti gayanti grinanti sadhava. He says that transcendental literature that fully glorifies the Lord are of different creation, and can create revolution in the impious lives of the misdirected civilization. Even though improperly composed, they are improperly composed, they are heard, sung, and accepted by saintly people. So he says, when something is done in the glorification of Krishna, like he first mentions about the materialistic literature. If the materialistic literature, if it is fully perfectly, nicely composed with nice grammar, with perfect what do you call, language, and hi-fi thing, with a lot of decorations of materialistic things, but it is still like a decoration on a dead body. Like how much ever you decorate a dead body, it is not going to have any value. But on the other hand, if something is done for the glorification of Krishna, it is of great value, even if it is improperly composed, or it is because they are very pleasing to the saintly devotees. Such a kind of literature which glorifies Krishna, if they are heard, sung, or then they actually create a revolution in the hearts of misdirected civilization. If you see the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, unless Srila Prabhupada, if Srila Prabhupada would not have come to America and then composed us, Bhagavad Gita as it is, or the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, we would have been somewhere like doing something else, means giving importance to material acquisition, something like that. We would have lost in this material forest of material existence. But when Srila Prabhupada came here, he translated for us. He actually, uh, actually wrote Bhagavad Gita or all the Vedic literatures in such a way that they are more. He made them relevant to our lives and gave in a very simplified manner. uh, and it has changed many lives and it will change in many lives. It is said that this literature will stay alive for 10 means stay this movement will stay for 10,000 more years, as per the predictions of the scriptures. So, so while writing these commentaries, also Srila Prabhupada also writes, uh, I'm not a perfect person, but it is my only attempt. But I, what do you call? I feel that the persons who are saintly, they only accept the whatever is positive and forgive the offenses. Because Srila Prabhupada is also no, he's the greatest authority. He's also Jagat Guru. He wrote, he composed, he translated many of the Vedic scriptures into English. But still he himself saying that even though he quotes this sloka, because even though this literature is imperfectly composed, it will still create revolution. That is the difference between materialistic literature and transcendental literature. After explaining all these things, Narada Muni also reveals reveals to Vyasdeva the importance of describing Krishna's pastimes, because he stresses on the importance of glorifying the Krishna's pastimes. He says, the knowledge of self-realization through the though free from material affinity, does not look well if devoid of bhakti. Hmm? Because if you see the Vyasadeva's work, he stresses mostly in the Vedantas and Vedanta Sutras. He stresses mostly on Brahman realization, because of it is meant for the persons who are atheistic in their disposition, because the persons in this material world are have the strong tendency to enjoy independent of Krishna. That's why he stresses on Brahman realization, Brahman uh, uh, aspect of the Krishna. Hmm? And he doesn't directly glorify Krishna. Because glorifying Brahman means it is not a direct glorification. It is like a personal glorification of Krishna. It is impersonal glorification of Krishna. So Krishna, Vyasdeva, Narada Muni is saying to Vyasdeva, the knowledge of self-realization, if devoid of bhakti, does not look well if it is devoid of bhakti. So, and then if even the knowledge of the self-realization does not look well if it is devoid of bhakti, then what to speak of the temporary fruitive activities? If you see the Vedas and Vedas, they mainly deal with the fruitive activities, different types of yajnas, yagas, like that. So they mainly deal with fruitive activity. And even if the knowledge of self-relation means, if that knowledge doesn't look well without the aspect of bhakti, then what to speak of the fruitive activities? So, and he says Vyasadeva's qualification as a transcendental author means, because Narada Muni also glorifies Vyasadeva, that you are you are a son of Parashara Muni. You are very well versed, and you are you have he glorifies, you have perfect vision, you have spotless fame, and also truthful and firm in your vows. Thus think of Lord's, you think, thus you can think of Lord's pastimes in trance and for the liberation of everybody. So he says that you have the qualification to do this work of glorifying Krishna. And when you sit in trance, you will be able to see the pastimes of Krishna. That's where Narada Muni giving the benediction to Vyasdev. And he says, whatever is described as with the vision separate from Krishna, from the Lord, separately reacts with the different forms of names to agitate the minds like boat attacked by the wind. Okay. So if you describe anything disconnect, if you description disconnected from Krishna are insubstantial. That's what Narada Muni is saying here. Because if you do any glorification which is not connected to Krishna, it is worthless. Mm. And he says in the in this word Jugupsitam Dharma Krite means it is your instructions you have. Narada Muni is saying that by your instructions you have encouraged the natural enjoying tendency of the people. Thus they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. And this is verily condemned, because Narada Muni is saying that this living entities means the humans or these persons, they generally have the tendency for enjoyment. Now you are actually making them bona fide. uh, they will think this sense enjoyment is also religious, and they will not care for getting out of it, because this as per the scriptures, as per Bhagavad Gita, this is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. If you only think that this material existence is only the ultimate, then you will not care for getting out of it. And unless you know that there is something eternal, there is something more sublime, there is something permanent, uh, then we don't go for it. Mm. So, like instead of being educating, instead of educating the people in general about their real identity, you are actually giving them the authority that the sense enjoyment is also allowed in the Vedas. So, and that's why this, no, and I cannot say this Vedic literature is perfect, because if the Vedic literature is perfect, then the person who compiled the Vedic literature should be also happy, mm, should be fully satisfied. But you are not fully satisfied, you are miserable, or you are not satisfied at heart after doing such a great literary work for the benefit of the people in general. So saying that, not only further glorifies process of bhakti. He says the progress in bhakti is credited forever. Okay, there is no loss even if fall down. Okay, so in the verse number 17, Krishna, it says, "Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam hare bhajan napakpot atat patot atat patet tato yati yatra यत्राक्ववर्बम अवध्यमश्यम किम कोवार्थ आपतो भजताम स्वधर्मता." He says that if a person gives up his occupational duties and engages in bhakti, even if he happens to fall down in an immature stage, there is no loss or danger in his being unsuccessful. Because on other hand, he says, Narada Muni says, on other hand, a non-devotee, though perfect in executing his dharma, does not gain anything. Mm. Because Narada Muni is stressing here how a devotee, even if he gives up everything, and take up bhakti alone, but out of due to immaturity, if he falls down, there is no loss, because whatever the devotional credit or devotional achievement he has made in this lifetime will stay with him forever. Mm. But unless a non-devotee, if he does the materialistic things perfectly, no, if he says no, if he go, if a non-devotee, even if he goes to heavenly planets, if he does something materialistically, something material very perfectly, and goes to even to Brahmaloka also, he will ultimately will fall down after his good karma is over, and whatever he has achieved through the endeavors of his life will be vanquished only after a short span of time. Mm. So that's what Narada Muni is saying. The results achieved by performing bhakti, even though imperfectly, is much more valuable than perfectly doing something materialistic. Mm. So when if Vyasdeva could direct the people in general towards bhakti just by hearing once, just by chanting, or just by doing anything in this process, will have them, give them eternally benefit. Mm. So he says, Narada says, intelligent people should endeavor only for that which is not obtainable even by wandering from Brahmaloka down to Pataloka. Hmm? Sense enjoyment can be obtained automatically in the course of time, just as in the course of time we obtain the miseries without desiring. Hmm? So he says we should only strive for the bhakti or performing devotional service. And this whatever endeavor we do for sense enjoyment, this enjoyment will automatically obtained in course of time, because in course of time we get miserable conditions, we get hard the difficulties in our life, we don't desire for them, but still we get them. Mm, because it is destined in our karma. So whatever is there in our karma, whatever is enjoyment or whatever is pleasure is there in our destiny, will come to us automatically. But if we engage ourselves in bhakti, we will get eternal benefit. Mm. And then saying that results of bhakti are permanent. Okay, describe Lord's pastimes more vividly and with conclusions. So and he says Vasudev that he should actually describe the Lord's pastimes more vividly and repeatedly also. The infallible purpose of everyone's austerity, the Vedic study, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, knowledge, and charity culminates in glorifying the qualities of the Lord. Hmm. So, what is the ultimate thing, ultimate achievement that anybody can do with all these things, all the good things, Vedic study, sacrifices, chanting of the hymns, knowledge, and charity. Ultimate thing that he can achieve is the devotional service to the Lord. So they all culminate, culminates in glorifying the qualities of the Lord. So here Narada Muni actually literally chastises Vyasdev, but Vyasdev accepts it, because like it is said that a disciple should be always subordinate, whatever the level he may reach to, but he should be always subordinate to the guru. There is a nice pastime of Indra when he thought that he don't have to respect his guru. No, he actually suffers a lot. That will come in the later cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is said that a disciple should be always meditating on the lotus feet of guru and the instructions of guru. And if anything, like everybody needs guru in all the stages of life, irrespective of or their spiritual or material advancement. So if anybody thinks that he doesn't need, he don't have the necessity to follow guru at any point of time, that is the first step that he's started falling down. So here Narada Muni chastises Vyasdev and finally gives him these suggestions. Okay, you have done this and this work, this is abominable thing, and then you just stress on glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then and when Narada Muni was instructing that, Vyasdeva accepts them and accepts with great attention and what you call submission. And then in order to like it is said, like in order to show the example what a bhakti or devotion can does, Narada Muni narrates his past life. He says how he was no, he was born as a, in his he narrates his previous life, so he says in his previous life he was a son of maid servant. And he was actually, his his mother, she was serving in the house of a brahmana. And there at one point of time, some bhaktivedantas, means some devotees happen to visit there, and it happens to be chaturmasa, and the devotees stayed there for 4 months in the house where Narada Muni's mother was serving. So when Narada Muni's mother was serving the uh, Narada Muni's mother was engaged in the service of Bhaktivedantas, and Narada Muni also started serving them or assisting his mother. So in that course of time, he actually no, uh, he actually took guidance from them, because he served them. Satangrupa means the bhakti has the 14 stages. Among them, like all of them are listed in this Narada Muni's pastime. Satankruva means the causeless mercy of the Lord. Okay, the saintly persons coming to the house of Narada, like where Narada Muni is staying, that is the mercy of the Lord. And then Mahatseva means service to the devotees. And then when due to their association, when the devotees in the house, means Bhaktivedantas, they are residing there, during their conversation, or when they sit or when they glorify the Lord, and the Narada Muni happened to listen to them. Narada Muni was like in the childhood, our minds will be very sharp. Children, when they see or hear something, they'll just absorb it. So in the same way, when Narada Muni saw this, how the devotees were doing their bhajan, doing their sadhana, he actually and also he observed them, he served them. And then he developed shraddha, means interest, and then he took Guru Padashraya, means he took the shelter of them. mm. And one day he says, like his experience, he was he happened to get the remnants of the devotees. And there it is said that Bhojanehu Spha means, like he happened to get the remnants, their remnants, and he took their remnant, he took their permission and ate those remnants with grateful heart. Mm. And then through that he developed bhakti. Mm. And then when he developed the bhakti, then anartha pagama means his the anarthas in his heart started fading off, means started going away. And then he he actually uh, developed nishta and then ruchi for the devotional service of the Lord. Means these things are listed here, but they actually simultaneously happen, because if somebody takes a medicine, the medicine not only relieves from the disease but also gives new energy to the body. Mm. In that way, this service to the great bhakti, the great devotees of the Lord, they not only relieved from the anarthas and the heart of the from the heart of Narada Muni, but also spontaneously bhakti sprout, bhakti and nishtha and ruchi for devotional service uh, started developing in the heart of Narada Muni. Mm. and and after some time they actually left, and then Narada Muni is saying, my attention on the Lord then becomes uninterrupted, because he says, I'll read through this sentence. Okay, once I took the remnants with their permission, and all my sins were eradicated. Having developed an inclination for bhakti, being pure in the heart, I inevitably developed a taste for hearing and chanting. And I attentively heard Krishna Katha every day by their mercy. As the taste for the hearing increased at every step, I developed Rati, means Bhava for Krishna. Hmm. So my attention on the Lord then became uninterrupted. Thus I directly experienced my gross and subtle bodies created by the Lord's Maya to be fixed on Him only. Hmm. So during the monsoon season and autumn, I constantly heard the Lord's pure glories from those Bhakti Vedantas. Then I developed Prema, which destroyed Rajas and Tamas. So I was attracted to Bhakti. I was attracted to Bhakti Vedantas, who are most kind and to the fallen. I was humble and sinless, self-controlled, inclined to serve, and I strictly faithfully followed them and with body and mind. As they were about to depart, they instructed me the most confidential knowledge of pure bhakti, which was taught by Lord Himself. So, by this knowledge, I could understand the influence of the Supreme Creator's spiritual and material energies, mm, knowing which one can return to Him. Means like Nardamuni took his bhakti seriously started after he taking the remnants from them, and then he constantly engaged in devotion service by hearing and chanting in their association. And when they were leaving, they actually taught to Nardamuni about the pure bhakti towards the Lord. Mm. And then here, after saying all these things, Nardamuni says, like in in this material world, no, we have to do perform karma, based on our position, based on our varna and ashrama. We have to do some service to the in this material world. But as long as our no, service is related to the devotional service of Krishna, it says learned man concludes that the best remedial measure for removing all the miseries is to dedicate one's activity to the service of the Lord. Means we have to serve the Lord in whatever position we are in. So that is the ultimate thing that we have to be cautious about. Means are we doing everything for the sake of Krishna or for the our enjoyment? And a thing when applied therapeutically cures a disease which was caused by very same thing. Mm. Similarly, the activities, the karma that ordinarily cause the perpetual bondage when dedicated to Lord's service destroy tree of work. It is said that these senses are the thing which bind us to this material existence. So Mara says the senses which are cause for us to get no, which drag us to the hell will liberate us if we engage them in the service of Krishna. The same senses which take us to the hell, if we use them in the service of Krishna, will be the cause of liberation. Will because when they are engaged in Krishna service, then it will purify the entire existence, including our gross and material and subtle things. Okay. So while performing the duties according to Lord Krishna, one constantly remembers him, his names and his qualities. Uh, so when we are performing all our activities uh, for bhakti, means in devotional service, then we will be always conscious because oh, this is for Krishna. Whatever I'm doing is for Krishna, because we will be constantly Krishna conscious. When we are Krishna conscious, everything gets purified and all the sinful reactions will get destroyed. So and Naramuni, he says that no, he teaches his personal mantra. He says to Vyasdeva, let us chant the glories of Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshana. So the actual seer is he who worships Lord Vishnu in the form of transcendental sound, mantra murti. So he says about how to uh, chant, how to chant the or worship the Lord in the form of sound by chanting the holy name of Lord. Okay, and knowing that I executed his confidential instructions, Lord Krishna bestowed upon me Gnanam, Aishwaryam, and Swamsha Bhavam, means his intimate loving service. So when Narada Muni actually engaged himself, because when Bhaktivedanta taught him how to perform pure bhakti, he actually no, did them, executed the confidential instructions of the Bhaktivedanta, means the confidential instructions of the Lord himself. Then he developed the transcendental knowledge and spiritual opulences and his intimate loving service, means the loving service of the Lord. And then he says, therefore, please describe the Lord glories as they are. Satisfy the satisfy the hankerings of the learned man and mitigate the miseries of the common man. So he's Narada Muni is instructing Vyasdeva that you just glorify the pastimes of Lord Krishna. This will be most relishing to the person who are on the like learned. They are learned persons, means like they are like persons like pure devotees. It is uh, uh, it will satisfy them. It will satisfy the pure devotees, pure hearted souls, and it will mitigate the miseries of the common man. So in that way it will be beneficial for everybody. It will be beneficial for the devotees and non-devotees also. Devotees will be able to relish more and more the pastimes of Krishna, and non-devotees, when they hear the pastimes of Krishna, their miseries will be vanquished. So indeed there is no other way to get out of this, to get out of such miseries. Okay, so like there are different pastimes, how how one can mitigate all the miseries just by taking the shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So after illustrating all these things, then Narada Muni says this: just write something or do your work in such a way that it will be a direct glorification of Krishna, and that will be beneficial for you and for others. Just like if you take the life of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivinoda Saraswati Thakur said to Srila Prabhupada, you go and preach in the English speaking world, that will be beneficial for you and for others. So, and Srila Prabhupada took that instruction very seriously, and just because of his dedication to his guru, that brought this knowledge to everybody, everyone of us, and everybody is getting benefited. Srila Prabhupada also writes, it is for my own benefit also. That's what Srila Prabhupada writes. So that's why when we preach, we have to preach devotees, means the who are already in a well connected, because when we preach to devotees, we will be, every time we discuss, we will be getting newer and newer realizations, and every time we hear, we will be developing newer and newer revelations in the hearts. And also we should also preach to newcomers, or no, because when we preach to newcomers, it is we like we'll be facing different kinds of challenges also, because they will bring up different ways, and we have to accept that challenge. In order to convince them about the glories of bhakti, or about the pastimes of Krishna, about the Krishna, we have to dive deep into our knowledge and bring out solutions, to convince them. That way it will be like challenging. So for the other service, we have to preach to newcomers, and for ourselves, we have to discuss the glories of Krishna Katha with devotees. So preaching to the new devotees and preaching to the advanced devotees is equally important. So that is the short summary of this chapter. If you have any questions or comments, we can take here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Okay, nobody have any questions, right?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Please remember. Thank you so much for the wonderful and instructive class. So very nice nectar. Prabhuji, I had a question. Like Narad Muni, at the age of 5, he was not having any anathas. He was free of anarthas because at age of 5.
No, Mataji, it says like no, he is not free from anarthas because anarthas are always there. No, like Srila Prabhupada says, like even a newborn child has the lust, as anger, everything in him. But
Okay.
only thing is the senses are not developed yet, and
Okay.
that's why he is not able to express them.
Okay.
Now that's why if you see Narada Muni after Narada Muni says after he tasted the prasadam or the remnants of the devotees, all his sins are eradicated. He can feel that.
Yes. Yes.
So it is said that according to scriptures, all the anarthas are always there in the with the jiva because the jiva, the soul is covered by mind, intelligence, and ego, and this
Yes.
mind, intelligence, and ego is coming from life after life. Hmm?
Yes. Yes.
This will change, but is always there.
Yes. Sir.
So this anarthas are always there, but this if you see the children, the small child, its senses didn't develop yet. That's why they seem very innocent. They seem very pure. No, but
Yes.
actually they are not pure, but their senses are not developed yet. Because if you see Osama bin Laden, when he was child, he was also like all the child. Because and we don't consider, we cannot think like how he will develop. No, Adolf Hitler, something like that kind of persons. They are also very cute, very very innocent when they are small child. But somebody can say, but their life experiences might have changed it. So this kind of provoking situations comes in the lives of any person. If you see, the life provoking situations comes in the life of Yudhishthir, in the life of Arjun, in the life of Bhima, and they got like the ultimate insults for them, because they are trying to disrobe their wife in front of everybody. That's the ultimate provoking situation. Is there any a greater provoking situation for a person in this material world? Means that is the highest, that is the peak. But if you see the life of Karna, he has little bit of small insults. Like somebody say call him like Sudra, somebody call him like that. So and Karna takes the shelter of Duryodhan and party, and he turns into a one of the Dushta Chaturvyuha. And but the same time, the Yudhishthir, he tolerates all the offenses created by the Duryodhan, and he's still willing to forgive him. So it is these anarthas are always there in our heart. They have been carrying from life after life. So even in the child also they will be there. That's why the in the Krishna conscious thing, in our Vedic society, they stress on the what you call samskaras. We have to perform samskaras, so that we will attract nice souls into our family, like that.
Yes.
So
Thank you. Thank you so much for clarification.
any more questions, Mataji? Okay, if anybody, so we'll end it here if you don't have any questions. Thank you very much. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank
Hare
you so
Krishna.
much.
Yes.
Hare
Bhagavatam Prabhu ki jai.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.